Hello, I'm Brian Morris, member of the Auburn Chess Club in California. We're near Sacramento. And I like to follow the games of the Las Vegas Chess Club because, for one reason, they post their weekly games. And so we're going to look at a game that was played last week in something called the Rocking It Open. So last Friday night. And by the way, I highly recommend the Las Vegas Chess Club. If you go to their website, you can see these games. The game I want to look at first is round 3 between an expert and a B-level player. The expert is Carmelito Mejia, and the B player is Terrence Aguinaldo. Aguinaldo is white. Looking at the position, we're on about move 36. You can see black has a rook and 3 pawns, and white has a bishop and 5 pawns. So technically, using the old numbering system, they're equal materially. But things are never that simple. The rook, of course, can go to all colored squares. It is black's move, by the way, at this moment. Whereas the bishop's limited to the dark squares. Key difference. One reason why a rook, and sometimes, is almost twice as strong as the bishop. I like to think that these videos, while I don't pretend to be a grandmaster or even an expert, I'm kind of an average to middling player. I love chess, and I think there's something to be said for what folks like me have to say about games. If nothing else, to learn from what does the average player think about during a game. And using a machine, I've done some study on this, so I can give at least a somewhat informed opinion. I don't doubt that some of you can find better answers than I can. But we're going to look at this. You can see in the first move that black goes to rook c1. He's trying to attack the pawns from the rear, which is a common strategy. White's pawns, the king can't guard them all, and the bishop is busy guarding the a1 square, so the rook does not have an easy way to get at the a pawn. But he can get to the g pawn and possibly the h pawn if the g pawn gets pushed. Now, white makes his first big mistake. It's important to say that after 36 moves, white and black have played very well, in my opinion, and it's stayed even. I don't think anybody's ever had more than a pawn advantage through 36 moves. But then white makes a mistake. King to d4. Why is that a mistake? As I said earlier, the bishop was guarding a1, and I guess you could say b2, and possibly even c3. Now he's blocked. The rook, if he wishes, can go to a1 right now and attack that a pawn, and the king has no chance to get there in time. Now granted, the bishop could go to d6, but that allows other things to happen. For instance, black's king can penetrate and go to f6. So black moves his king over, and that's to guard against bishop to d6. The machine doesn't think that's such a good move, but nonetheless, that's his idea. White has got a four pawns versus 2 on the king side, and so he's going to try and work that advantage, and he pushes the g pawn. Rook there's no danger in going to a1 at the moment because the king's blocking the bishop. He continues with his plan. He can't do much about that pawn, so he continues with his plan, pushing pawns. Meanwhile, the rook removes it, so now black has an outside passer. Now, what we're really aiming for in this game is not so much this position, but where we're going to get to in a couple of minutes. So let's run through it. H pawn advances, double take. The king realizes both sides have a passed pawn. White's is a couple squares ahead of black, not to mention the rook's in the way of the black pawn. So it's going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves to get the black pawn to promotion, whereas the white pawn can do it in 3 if he's not stopped. The king attacks, and actually the machine thinks that it's much better to try this. Attack the rook. He has to move the rook and then bring, let's imagine he comes here, and then bring here, still guarding the pawn. But the bishop has more range, and that's, but let's go back to what happened. Bishop g7. I think black's feeling a little frustrated because what does he do? How does that white pawn is awfully close to promotion, and white keeps applying more pressure. Let's run through these moves. Okay, what's black going to do here? Why do you go to f7? Could it be he's thinking about trading the rook for the bishop? He does. And he must believe that in this position, black is closer to the pawns, and the white king is definitely further away, that black will be able to hold and win this position. But that's not what the machine says, and that's not the situation. And I suggest that if you're looking at this game, this is a good position for you to take home, look at yourself, and analyze. I mean, I'm going to run through it and show you what happens. Black's smart enough not to go here right away. Well, you can't go there. To go here, and then to go here right away, guarding his pawn. Because when he goes here, what can the black king do? He has to let go of his pawn. So I think he thinks, I'm going to avoid that problem, but so does white. By triangulating, instead of going directly to d6, he goes to d7, and then to d6. We're in that same predicament for black. He has to give up, and that white pawn's going to promote. So I think this is a simple case of black traded the rook for the bishop. I don't know if he had a lot of time pressure, but he did not see far enough to know that though his king was a couple squares closer, visually it looked better, white could win. Thank you.